Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the first episode in a brand new webinar series, all focused around sustainability. And today's episode, we are going to be discussing what does it mean to be a sustainable hotel. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Eloise Hanson, and I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News. And Boutique Hotel News is an online trade publication. We cover the global boutique, lifestyle, and luxury hotel industry. So one of our series sponsors is Beyond Green, a global portfolio of sustainable hotel, resorts and lodges. We're lucky enough to have Nina Boys on the call today, and we're going to be hearing from Nina shortly. But in the meantime, we have a very short video to play for you this morning. Further details about Beyond Green have been popped into the chat if you would like to learn more. And our second series sponsor is Ruckus, which is a provider of networking equipment and software. And once again, we do have a short video to play for you.
Ruckus solutions deliver operational efficiencies that are crucial for maintaining profitability and enhancing guest satisfaction. Improving staff safety and inventory management with location tracking and panic button solutions. Boosting employee efficiency to maximize time utilization for enhanced customer service. Every hotel system operating seamlessly under a single network for unified workflows and simplified management. Ruckus solutions empower hospitality businesses to reduce their environmental footprint, conserve resources, and contribute to a more sustainable future. Reducing energy costs with IoT-enabled thermostats for sustainability, and enabling remote monitoring and control of building systems and equipment. Designed to support current and future standards, protocols, and technologies, all fully backed by the expertise and support of a leader in hospitality solutions. Optimize every hotel with always-on Wi-Fi, smart technology, service efficiency, and customer loyalty, and sharing their experiences with others, so you can improve occupancy rates, RevPAR, and guest satisfaction scores. It's time to differentiate your property, minimize costs, and drive revenue performance. Unlock the future of hospitality with Ruckus Solutions.
And further details about Ruckus have also been popped into the chat. So let's meet our panelists today. We have lots to get through, and what I'm going to do is ask each of our speakers to introduce themselves, and I'll move from left to right as per the PowerPoint slide, just so that we can see who's coming next. And during your introduction, I would also like you to add, what does sustainability mean to you? So Alexa, welcome, and let's kick off with yourself.
Thank you, Eloise. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexa Portier, and I am the founder of Now Transforming Hospitality, URL itmustbenow.com. Now help hotels to advance sustainability with accountability, transparency, and compliance, and to achieve goals of net negative emissions. We offer the Now Advisors Hub with a Sustainability Academy and access to qualified coaches, providing an internal audit to identify gaps and where to save money with little to no investment, implement a compliance certification program, help produce audit reports and pass an independent audit, and advise on premiums to charge hotel customers. We provide access to a sustainability reporting tool so hotels can communicate with transparency to engage stakeholders. And to fully decarbonize, we provide access to high-quality carbon credits with capped pricing and rebates of up to 10,000 euros with purchase. We define sustainability as taking responsibility for total environmental, social, and economic impacts in the destination where a business operates, and support of SDGs so future generations can meet their own needs. Thank you, Eloise.
Super, Alexa. Thank you. Ian, let's come to yourself next. A short introduction and what does sustainability mean to you?
Hi,
Welcome.
yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ian Shelter. I'm the Chief Executive here at Swinton Estate. We're a 20,000 acre estate up in North Yorkshire, in England. We recently joined the Beyond Green partnership program as well for our hotel, Swinton Park. We have both a glamping site, a hotel, spa, holiday cottages, all of the range of activities that you can do up here in North Yorkshire. Originally a hotelier as well by trade. I spent 30 years in the independent hotel trade before sort of maybe slightly getting out of operations and delivering sustainability a little bit more across the whole of the estate. What does sustainability mean to us here at Swinton? I think, you know, we look at it as how are we assessing the challenges globally that we have in front of us, and together how we can really, and not just as the staff and the team here, but as our partners and our suppliers, how do we improve the environment, you know, one step at a time, realistically? It's a massive, massive subject that we're going to be talking about. And I don't think there's any defined answers that anybody has really at this stage.
Thank you, Ian. That's brilliant. Fitzroy, over to you next, please. A short intro and your definition of sustainability.
Hi, I'm Fitzroy Hutchinson. I'm the Energy and Sustainability Manager for the Celtic Collection. We have a number of properties here in South and West Wales. I've been in post now for 3 years. We have our properties range offering different services. Our flagship is Celtic Manor Resort, which has 3 championship golf courses and has held a large number of events over the last few years. What does sustainability mean to us? Quite a lot, to be fair. I've been fortunate to come into an organisation that has a 30-year track record of tackling sustainability. The ownership firmly sits right the way throughout the organisation. I would say that our objective with sustainability is pretty much to take everybody on the journey, because it affects absolutely everyone, regardless of who you are, whether you're a guest, whether you're an employee or a team member, whether you're providing a service to any of our properties. It's looking to bring, like I said, everyone on the journey to achieve net zero.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fitzroy. And last but by no means least, Nina, a short introduction and your definition of sustainability, please.
Thank you so much, Eloise, and such a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and thank you so much to everyone for attending. So as Eloise touched upon, my name is Nina Boyes. I am the Vice President of Sustainability for Beyond Green. Beyond Green is a sustainability leadership portfolio of hotels, resorts, and lodges all around the world that are truly walking the walk of sustainability leadership. In our definition of sustainability, we really define it into the 3 key pillars, which we call nature, culture, and community. So all of our members around the world are really walking the walk of what leadership means in bringing support and tangible positive impact across all 3 of those pillars. And as some of the other panelists touched upon, it's also really about integrating guests and staff and stakeholders into this journey. I love that you just used the word journey, because it truly is. When we talk about sustainability at Beyond Green, the reason we say that this is a journey is because we truly believe there is no final destination. So none of our member hotels are waking up and ever saying, we've arrived, we're sustainable, we can check the box and move on. But really it's about having a continual and ongoing commitment to always finding new solutions, innovating and learning from yesterday so that we can do better tomorrow. And for myself personally, I would say, first of all, I love the question because sustainability can mean such different things to different people. For myself, it's really an approach to life and to business, and one where we can give more than we take. And also, I think it's more largely recognizing the interconnectedness of all of our actions, both on the planet and people that are living here today, but also recognizing that it's our responsibility to also protect it for future generations and that we act accordingly. So thank you all so much. Very happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nina. And all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers have been popped into the chat. I do encourage all our audience members today to connect because we've got a lot to get through. We may not get through all of it today, and I'm sure there'll be much to discuss after this webinar has finished. So we're going to do our best to spend around 45 minutes in conversation with our speakers today, and we will take some questions from our audience members. So if you do have any burning questions that you would like to ask today, please submit these using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and I will get round to asking those as and when relevant. And this webinar is being recorded. Everybody that has registered will receive a copy of that recording within 2 days' time. And let me run through some very brief context slides before we dive into today's panel discussion. And we can see here that more hotels are now being recognised for their sustainability efforts, evidenced in Beyond Green, growing its portfolio to nearly 50 properties worldwide. And I think what all of you have alluded to in your introductions is that knowledge sharing is absolutely critical in advancing sustainability in hospitality. It's precisely why we are here today. And sometimes this can be directed most of the time to maybe the on-property experience, but there is lots to be achieved off-property too. A recent example is English Lakes Hotels, which has donated £5,000 to support a local nursery builds a sensory room. And a new organisation called the International Centre for Responsible Tourism will also launch a series of training courses, such as how to manage over-tourism or how to create shared value. And that's open to anybody that's working in any part of the tourism industry. And on the next slide, I popped in our sort of the synopsis of today's webinar that I'll provide an overview of the key acronyms that exist within the sustainability landscape. And here is just a few of them. This list certainly isn't definitive. It covers both frameworks and standards, but I think it's a good visual overview of what owners and operators are perhaps needing to stay abreast of. And it's perhaps no wonder that when trying to navigate the sustainability landscape, it can get a little confusing. And in some instances, that overwhelm of information might have an adverse effect on taking action. And so what we're aiming to do today and in the rest of this webinar series is to provide some advice, provide some real life examples and key considerations of how hoteliers can either begin or improve their sustainability efforts. So let's get started. And I want to kick off with a question to Nina, if I may. You've just seen from the slide before that there's a hell of a lot that owners and operators do need to stay abreast of when it comes to the different frameworks and certifications and such. What role, I alluded to it just a moment ago, but what role do you think that these play, Nina, in shaping sustainable hospitality? And can you please elaborate on the framework that you use to assess hotels and why?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I think this is a really important question to start with, because as you've just touched on, Eloise, the travel and tourism industry has not done a terribly effective job of simplifying sustainability. And in fact, in many ways, the mounting number of standards, frameworks, and certifications, all of which have inconsistent backbones to them, has caused considerable confusion amongst travelers that are just looking to find reliable travel options and accommodation that align with their values. And that they really can feel confident supporting, because we know that more travelers than ever are looking to align their travel purchases with their values and really spend money supporting like-minded businesses where they know that the impact of their vacations and of their trips is going to leave a positive ripple effect. And likewise, it can also be very overwhelming for hotels to be able to navigate this space. And as you mentioned, the different frameworks and certifications is constantly evolving, it's growing, it's scaling, and it's changing. So as a hotelier, to be able to decide which programs to join, how to transparently tell your stories around the good sustainability work that you're doing on site, while also sharing your future goals in a way that reaches the right travelers and also avoids accusations of greenwashing is a real challenge. And I also think this inconsistency really does slow us down as an industry from scaling solutions and collaborating, which, as you touched on earlier, is absolutely key to achieving what we all want as an industry, which is to really create one where we are working together and able to really have shared values and shared goals and be able to transparently report on those goals using the same language.
Mm-hmm.
So in the context of Beyond Green, back when the portfolio was launched in 2021, it was very evident coming out of the pandemic, or in that case, still in the pandemic, that the demand for more sustainable accommodation was only going to continue to surge. So during that global pause in travel, we know that travelers really had an opportunity to reflect on where they were traveling, how they were traveling, and what impacts their trip was having on the communities and places they visited. And as a brand that is owned by Preferred Travel Group, we also really recognize the need to help travelers cut through this noise and really be able to navigate this crowded space to be able to find those hotels that were really walking the walk and not only talking the talk. So that was why Beyond Green was created, in addition to being able to offer hoteliers the opportunity to really magnify the impact of what they were doing, both on site and in their communities, and to be able to reach those travelers that were really seeking that kind of experience. So when we were launched, the way that we really differentiated ourselves as a brand was by introducing our own set of sustainability criteria that was deeply rooted in respected existing frameworks, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as other industry best practices. And so we developed a very comprehensive set of criteria across, as I mentioned, the three key pillars of nature, culture, and community. And we broke that down into looking at how hotels are operating in an environmentally friendly manner, how they're giving back to the natural and cultural heritage of the destinations where they operate, and how they're also providing real tangible impact to local people and communities. Likewise, we also look at how hotels are managing their sustainability performance. So what systems they have in place to really track, monitor, and manage their performance using data to learn, set future goals, and monitor their progress along the way. And once we had those sustainability criteria developed, we also introduced our on-site inspection process. So in order to become a Beyond Green member, all of our members need to undergo a very rigorous on-site 3-day inspection process that's led by an independent sustainable tourism expert that's able to go on site, do front of house tours, back of house tours, experience the guest activities, speak with the staff, and also visit the local community to ensure that all of our members are really walking the walk of leadership across all of our criteria, and that when members book our hotels, they're really confident, again, that they're able to have a positive impact in the destinations that they're visiting. And in addition to introducing those pre-joining inspections, all of our members also undergo a re-inspection every 24 months to ensure that their compatibility in the portfolio is maintained. And that's really our promise, both to our hotel members as well as to our travelers, that they know when they're booking with Beyond Green, they are really booking with a sustainable tourism leader.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dina, for that introduction. And as I mentioned earlier, more details about Beyond Green have been popped into the chats, LinkedIn profiles, website details, contact details. So it's all there should anybody wish to learn more. Alexa, let's bring you in here because there is a hell of a lot out there that hoteliers need to consider. So with that in mind, what should hoteliers consider when they are evaluating those different frameworks and certifications? And what would be your advice to determine whether pursuing a framework or a standard, a rating system is going to be the right choice?
Eloise, to make it easier for the viewer, will you allow me to share screen? Because I prepared a few slides to give this more impact.
I do have my team members on the call. I'm not currently in charge of said screens.
It just needs to be disabled. And
let's see what we are able to do. If not, I suggest that we just verbally speak and we see what we're able to do so. So team, are we able to share screen?
Yes, perfect. Okay, so let me just start a screen. Apologies, I'm just trying to get on to sharing.
I suggest if we can't get this to work, like as I said, Alexa, why don't you just verbally walk us through? And if needed, we can follow up with our audience members with your PowerPoint in the follow-up email.
Can you see my screen?
We can indeed, yes.
Okay. So to answer your question on considerations and our advice to that, we recommend that to consider assessing goals and needs first and doing a comparison. So have a clear idea of what you want to achieve and what you need to improve, and to compare frameworks and certifications on how well they match your goals and needs, how credible and reputable they are, how easy and affordable they are to obtain and maintain, and how valuable they are for the stakeholders. There are popular certification schemes out there. For hotels, for developing hotels, there's LEED, BREEAM, and EarthCheck Design. For hotel operations, there's the International Organization of Standardization, which is ISO. There's EarthCheck, Green Key, Green Globe, Travel Life. Certifications differ in their scope, in their level, in their rigor, in transparency, in verification, and in cost, and in recognition. So the second one is regulations. We have to keep in mind that regulations are becoming very, very strict in many parts of the world, with the EU leading the most rigorous one. They adopted the EU Green Claims Directive in January of 2024. It applies to all businesses in the EU and abroad. So this will apply in the UK if you're targeting the EU consumer. And we understand too that the UK will be making their announcements in the spring of 2025 as well for more rigorous regulations. So to comply with regulation standards, hotels should possess a certification scheme that is approved by an accreditation body. They've now put an accreditation body above it called a conformity assessment body, and it must be listed globally in the International Accreditation Forum. So this is how you identify those that are compliant and you should be working with. The third, to be approved by these conformity assessment bodies called a CAB, then the must-have criteria for certification schemes are, they must be science-backed. That means this certification program must be based on the EN ISO 14024 Type 1 Eco-Labeling Scheme Standard. It must have an independent audit that is transparent, legitimate, and it must be conducted by an organization recognized by a conformity assessment body. And this is different in every country. There's one in the UK and there's one in different parts of the world. There must be an aggregated sustainability, performance scoring, and grading system. For example, recognizing how many years a company has been a part of the scheme is permitted, but many of the others are not. For regulation compliance, again, I'm referring to the EU Green Claims Directive, which impacts, again, all hotels outside the EU that is interested in the EU consumer. To date, examples of popular certification schemes that are complying with the requirements of the EU Commission, considering the independence of certification process via this official conformity assessment body, is EarthCheck and ISO. Only these two so far.
Thank you.
Certification schemes should have benchmarking. You can't manage where you don't measure. So hotels should collect benchmarking data to review actions taken to address their key performance areas, to develop and review an energy, water, waste management plan annually, and to compare key performance indicators within the hospitality industry. And the last one, there are 3 questions that every hotel should be asking of any certification scheme provider they're working with. Is the certification scheme officially accredited by an accreditation body in the place where the business is registered or originate, or in the EU member country? It should be. Ask which one. For example, Green Globe is from the United States, therefore they should be registered with an accreditation body in the US, or if they want to function in the EU, in an EU member country. Who is conducting the audit? Certification scheme providers should not be involved in the auditing and certification process. So it has to be appointed by an accreditation certification body, or else the audit is not legitimate. Are there any conflict of interest between the certification scheme advisors, consultants, and auditors? And certification schemes should not be providing advisory, consultancy, or auditing services. They should not be working in the same company or umbrella of companies. So these are 3 key questions every hotel, when they're considering a certification body, they should be asking them, or if they already have one, they should ask them this as well. Thank you, Eloise.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alexa. Fitzroy and Ian, I can see both your hands are up. Fitzroy, let's come to yourself first, and then Ian will bring you in here. Fitzroy, over to you.
Thanks. When it comes to when it comes to certifications, there's a lot that's out there in the industry. I think we should be pragmatic in the approach in terms of looking for the right accreditation that you should be adopting. It needs to fit your business and what your business represents, okay, and also what your clients represent, okay. Ideally, in an ideal world, what we would have is let's say one standard that would satisfy every kind of reporting mechanism that you're required to fulfill. Okay.
Yes, I do.
But again, so from my perspective, it's take the time to adopt the right accreditation, and not just adopt an accreditation for the sake of a badge that it looks great, because ultimately I feel that most accreditations will all be asking you to report on exactly the same thing. Okay.
Actually, they don't.
Say again?
Actually, they don't. Besides that one,
overall, they'll be asking for you to give an insight and an explanation of how your business runs. Okay. And ultimately what your objective is to tackling sustainability.
What is crucial here, and this is what the Green Claims Directive is putting in place, that unless you have the correct certification body, you are going to be accused of greenwashing. What you're saying, without the right certification body, without the correct independent audit, you actually cannot talk about sustainability at all.
Can I ask you, Alexa, bear with me. So if I adopt the correct, or if I adopt an accreditation that has the ability to be, and has the framework that requires me to report accurately, that is then internally and externally verified and audited, does that not then mean that I've satisfied a lot of reporting requirements?
It has to be compliant. If there's a regulation in the country, it has to be compliant with that. In the EU, which is a very big space, and they've not only made it applicable to EU hotels, it's also applicable to any hotel around the world that wants the EU consumer. This is all about protecting the EU consumer from greenwashing. And this is what they put in this very strict rules. Yes.
I would like to jump in very quickly here. The next episode in this series is all about monitoring and reporting sustainability performance. We could have a whole separate conversation here about this, but
thank you,
I would say that there is an episode later on in November. But Ian, you wanted to jump in here.
Well, I think there's some great points by both there, but for me, and there's a lot of independent hoteliers on here, some of it is a matter of making sure you make a start to something. And if that means that an accreditation scheme, no matter what it is, depending upon what you're going to use it as part of your marketing is a different thing. But if there's something that you can, whether that be the Green Business Awards, or whether or not it be Earth Check, or whether or not it be for it, for me, as long as you're moving in the right way and you're starting something which is better than nothing, is a big move forward when it comes to where to start with sustainability sometimes. And these can be great catalysts to actually starting. And then the more you understand, the more you open your eyes, then maybe you start taking more an official accredited route when you want to start proving your means. I think there was at the Independent Hotel Show last week, there was a very tiny little business in the Northwest that doesn't really do any accreditation or anything else for it. But God, by Jove, they were really well up onto their sustainability and what it is. And do they ask for somebody to come along and be checked on every year, every 2 years? Not really. But they pretty knew their stuff and they were making a difference to sustainability. So I mean, it depends how you want to utilize the accreditation, I guess.
Stepping up is the first step, definitely.
Ian, let's stay with you for a moment here, because I understand that the estate has launched its first report on sustainability, and you've highlighted some really ambitious goals, I believe, achieving carbon neutrality by 2030 and carbon negativity by 2040. Can you share some examples of the strategies and initiatives that you have put in place across the estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've got to go is that this is not a quick start. This is something that started 20 odd years ago, and Mark and Felicity, Lord and Lady Swinton, they were doing things for the right reason back in 2020. So utilization of woodland for the biomass, introduction of a biomass. I think one of the first independent hotels in the UK to put a biomass in for it on a sizable position. These are things that don't come quickly in the first instance. And it just so happens that people are starting to talk about targets that as an estate, we feel that we can do better on. Now, if you look at what are the big impacts of carbon, it's particular in the hotel itself. There's obviously electricity, there's obviously the oil and the gas, and those big parts of what would be your carbon footprint. For us, we have moved obviously into things like green energy, making sure that you're buying that with accredited stamps behind it to make sure that you're not, again, yourselves being greenwashed by the energy companies, that you're getting the right type of green electricity. There's obviously things like putting in solar onto the roof to minimize the use of an impact of how much carbon we're doing. We're just in the process of awaiting for planning permission to go through on a ground-mounted system that will take sort of a third to a half of the electricity from the hotel away from that. But we're also looking at how, as an estate, we are moving forward in balancing off the position. We're not a believer that we are going to reduce down our carbon footprint of a service industry business down to zero without the necessity of offsetting the residual basis of it for it. We have an advantage that we have a lot of land. We are doing lots of good things too, which will help us get that carbon neutrality maybe quicker than others as a business as one, for instance. So things like the regeneration of the peatland and the moorland that we are in control of. There's a substantial amount of work that's been done to reletting that over the last 7 to 8 years, re-wetting, that over the last 7 to 8 years. And that is a natural sponge, realistically absorbing carbon. So some of the work that we've been doing in those natural-based solutions has also helped us do this. But at the end of the day, there is a tree planting scheme that we're having here across the business, which at the end of the day will help us get to that stage. But that doesn't get away from the targets that we have internally of reducing down our consumption of carbon in the first place for it. So I think there's a balance there, Louise, of how we're getting to that position. And then eventually, when we look at 2040, is making sure that that we are have mature trees coming through that really are offsetting against the carbon neutrality and therefore having a negative position of it. It's also something that aligns with the North Yorkshire County Council, where they want to get to 2033. They want the whole of North Yorkshire to be carbon neutral by that position. I think there's a long way to go.
Yeah, I've always asked who's in the driving seat when it comes to action. Is it your governments and local authorities? Is it the guests that's driving this change, or is it the investors that are able to sort of support you or financiers that are in that journey? But it sounds like
it's a combination of everything, to be honest with you. And we have a levy that we put on trees on the stays of everybody here, which goes back into a planting scheme. And there's little bits like that we can then start communicating better with the customer. And I think we've already mentioned it today already. The journey that we're all on, both from the team members, but also from the consumer, and also from the suppliers as well, is something which at the end of the day needs addressing all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Again, a later episode in this series is going to be looking at the supply chain and sustainable procurement. So if anyone's interested, stick around because we've got plenty coming your way. Fitzroy, it's been talked, I think in your introduction, you talked about the role that actually staff, team members and other key stakeholders play in this. Ian's just alluded to it as well. What role does employee engagement play in the group's sustainability efforts?
Quite heavily. So we've just achieved, so our accreditation is Green Dragon. We've just gone from level 3 last year and achieved level 4. And one of the requirements that when we looked at moving from one level to the next was around our staff engagement. Because at the end of the day, you cannot do this alone. You can find as much investment as you want, and you can put in as much efficient technology as you can that is affordable to you. But at the end of the day, it is about the end user. So, as I've said, what we also felt was that our staff needed to understand their responsibility, how their actions affected our overall emissions. And so we took all of our staff members, again, the word journey, on a journey, and our objective was to create what we call good environmental citizens. So no matter where any of our staff members went, that they understood that every action potentially had a reaction and potentially could carry a negative impact with it. So the training was to help those guys from the time they got up in the morning to the time they went to bed, so to help them at home, to help us when we came to work, to understand what good practice looked like. Okay, identifying where wastage occurs, identifying how we make those savings, and it was just about delivering good cognitive behaviour into each individual member of staff.
And looking at this from a wider cultural perspective, how else are you engaging with your staff to like foster
deliver
that? Deliver and make sure that they stay on track too.
So what we did was we created working groups internally, okay, and those working groups they come from a number of backgrounds. It can be, and in all properties that we have, it could be F&B, it could be culinary, it's estates, it could be activities. It doesn't matter. Passing ownership to groups so they can identify where poor performance exists within their buildings, within their departments, and then creating projects that basically move you from bad performance to good performance. And we sit down and we regularly review all of those projects that have been put forward. Okay. And you can see that now, once you've empowered staff, they are throwing ideas at you left, right. In fact, we need to slow them down a little bit because there is a little bit more. But it's great because I think historically for years, staff members would have been possibly ignored But now, and rightly so, because as I've said, we can't do this alone. Every staff member they're now understanding what a stakeholder is and that they are a stakeholder. And we are now seeing really good, positive projects being put forward. So, and long term, those projects, if they are adopted and then driven throughout the business, those projects will be rewarded in one form or another.
Nina, you mentioned that I noted in your introduction that you spoke a lot about leadership and being leaders in sustainability. And with that in mind, we've heard some examples of what's happening at property level. Can you share some examples of what Beyond Green member hotels are doing and being innovative in their approach to achieving certain sustainability goals?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you all so much for sharing these examples. I think we're all touching on a similar common central theme, which is without partnership, empowerment, and collaboration, none of us will ever be able to achieve our goals. And that ties back to your question, Eloise. So in the context of Beyond Green, again, when we look at leadership in sustainability, we're looking at, as the name implies, this idea that sustainability is more than the environmental impact that we have. It goes beyond green alone and recognizes that truly sustainable travel has to directly support, again, nature, culture, and community. So innovation in those different areas is something that makes Beyond Green such an exciting portfolio, because all of our member hotels that are in these incredible and unique destinations around the world are really leading the way in not only implementing good sustainable practices, but also in engaging their communities and incentivizing their guests to really be a part of that journey. So I can provide just a few different examples. So in the context of, for example, an amazing environmental initiative, in French Polynesia, one of our founding members, the Brando in the beautiful Tetiaroa Atoll, has actually implemented a seawater air conditioning system that pulls deep sea water that is very, very cold and uses that to chill their air temperatures, which is able to then reduce the amount of air conditioning needed on site, which is in a very tropical area. Of course, that is an innovation that is more applicable in certain areas than others. But one of the things that I love so much about what they've done with that innovation is not only are they lowering their carbon footprint by doing that, renewably using resources they have available to them to help mitigate their environmental impact, but they're actually also inviting guests to take green tours. So sustainability tours that then go behind the scenes and turn sustainability more into black and white facts and create stories around them, and really allow their staff and their department heads that are directly responsible for new ideas, for implementing solutions, for monitoring progress. They're actually able to share these stories of their real life experience with guests. And I also come from a background in hospitality and hotel management, and I think it's safe to say you can speak all day to guests about what you're doing and the impact that it has in numbers. And of course, data is important, but it's actually through the power of storytelling and personal human connection that you're able to often see guest light bulbs go on and say, oh, wow, okay, I had read you did that, but I didn't realize that that's what this is something that's really changed life here, or this is something that you've now been able to take with you and come up with new solutions and implement, and now you're growing in your career. So I think using storytelling to bridge that gap and allow those more immersive experiences that allow guests to not only see sustainability, but really understand and experience it is something that our Beyond Green members do exceptionally well. From a cultural standpoint, one of my favorite recent examples is we have an incredible property up in the Zagori region of northern Greece, in the mountains there. And they're in a very traditional stone village named Aristi with around 100 inhabitants. And they've done two things that I just think is so cool and innovative in the context of their environment. One is they actually brought a traditional stone layer into their village because they realized that their traditional way of building in these beautiful old historic villages was dying, and that there were fewer and fewer people in the communities that actually knew how to lay roads in the traditional historic ways they had always been. So they actually held a community workshop and they brought in a traditional stone builder who taught the village members and community members how to actually fix their road using the historic construction methods. So they did a full weekend workshop, not only giving them this skill that they can then pass on, but they also then fixed an entire community road in their traditional way of building. So again, I love that example. Additionally, that hotel has been at the forefront of achieving UNESCO designation for the Zagori destination and region as a whole, both in natural and cultural protection. So again, that speaks to, I think, the power of partnership and collaboration, and recognizing that hotels at the end of the day are important stakeholders of destinations, and that the more that they can be involved in destination stewardship, and the more that they can be involved in directly collaborating with one another to achieve larger goals that they would not be able to on their own, is really what brings true impact and action. And again, for us, that's what leadership really means. I won't repeat Ian because he did a great job of sort of touching on what they're doing at Swinton Estate with planting trees, not only for the sake of doing good, but they actually have very strong, firm goals tied to their carbon credits and their own reduction strategies. So, there's so many different, I think, amazing examples of how our member hotels are able to, first of all, listen to their communities, look around at their destinations, and really assess first and foremost, what is needed here? What do people who live here need? And how can we be a part of the solution and being a part of that positive change here? And then ultimately, how can we bring our guests and our staff into that mix so that it's not just a flash in the pan, but seeds of awareness are being able to be planted and to grow and ultimately to drive larger change.
Super. Thank you for that, Nina. I want to build on your point of storytelling, and I want to bring Alexa back into the conversation here, because I touched on it at the beginning, we have a role to play in this knowledge sharing. So that's all about communication. How do we communicate and share our best practices? So Alexa, what would be your advice to hoteliers and their teams too, when it comes to communicating and sharing their sustainability efforts, not just to their guests, but to owners, operators, and other stakeholders too?
Well, I'd like to give an example for our members. So once again, I'm going to be sharing screen, which your team have to allow me to do.
Let me see if we are able to. I'm very aware that we've got about 10 minutes left on this webinar. So for ease of speed,
go very quickly.
Could you talk us through it rather than sharing screens?
We can, but it is a communication tool and it is highly visualized. The Hotel Now member that I would like to give us an example, most in the UK know about, is the award-winning Watley Manor, who announced that they've achieved net negative emissions at the beginning of this year, and they will soon be announcing net negative emissions for the second year in a row in other members. So if you will allow me to share, it would benefit everyone to see what they're doing as a case study.
I will see what we are able to do. As I said, we can always share those PowerPoint slides in our follow-up. Because this webinar is being recorded, everybody that has registered will receive a copy of that recording. And in that email, we will add your PDF slides in there. As you mentioned, it would be a great case study, but I'm just looking at the clock and we've still got a lot to get through. So if you're able to just verbally talk us through it, Alexa, that would be fantastic.
Your questions, how can hoteliers effectively communicate, avoid greenwashing, as well as their communication. Greenwashing is exaggerating and making false claims or vague claims in the communication of their products and services as green or sustainable. So to avoid being accused of greenwashing, only communicate actions with evidence proof and measurements that have been independently audited. And having an accredited science-backed sustainable certification scheme with an independent audit is very, very vital. So best practices for communicating sustainability goals and achievement. First, I define your purpose and your goal. Purpose is what you do apart from making money. Your goals is usually communicated in a pledge, and this should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And it has to be able to have the ability to track progress, evaluate impact, and report on results. Second, choose a communication channel and platform to inform, to build and regain trust, to invite feedback, engagement, and action from consumers. And third, best practice, craft your sustainability message and tone. It has to be honest and open, authentic and transparent without the greenwash. And last, deliver your sustainability message effectively, consistently, and across all channels and platforms for transparency to stakeholders, and add sustainability reporting in your website, and use content for social media, email marketing, packaging, and labeling. And yes, you'll be sharing the Watley Manor now sustainability reporting tool and how to communicate in such an inspiring way. Thank you, Eloise.
Thank you, Alexa. And I think there is, when it comes to that storytelling aspect, it's all about building trust. And to Nina's point, if you can show tangible evidence, it's one thing to talk about it on your social media channels, but if on property, you can engage staff and guests to say, literally, you can see this is how we have achieved so. You are building that trust, and that leads to loyalty, that leads to returning guests, and obviously that affects
and your stakeholders go beyond that. It goes beyond to your media, to your travel operators, to your regulators. These are now your stakeholders, your investors, your owners.
I want to bring Ian back into the conversation here, because Fitzroy, you've 30 years, I think you mentioned in your introduction that the Celtic Collection have been on their journey. It sounds like Swinton Estate is still on it, early days. But when it comes to publishing that report, why now? Why was that so important for you to start that journey when it comes to the reporting side? We've had a question here from the audience. Is the supply chain and energy actions to reduce CO2 included in your footprint and report? So I'll bring that over to Fitzroy too.
So we've just on the verge of completing our ESOS requirement, but all of these, the whole need for reporting, I think it delivers and helps support accountability for an organization in terms of understanding what their impact is. Like Alexa said, if you can't measure it, you don't know what it is. But once you can start measuring it, that means then that you can start plotting a way forward of how you're going to actually reduce your impact. And that is why, when it came to our accreditation, once you start lifting the lid on absolutely everything that you start doing, you can start seeing what tools you need to adopt to get you to best practice, to net zero. Okay, but more importantly, it is just that it helps you adopt a standard. Okay, it helps you to start telling the public that, and you start to own the accreditation. If I'm honest, you start to own the report. You're now really conscious about, once you've started reporting once, I think you then realize that you have to continue, and continual development, right? Continual improvement, sorry, is the key words that will help you move forward. Because then once you start reporting, like Alexa says, any the financial backing that you need, they will want to see that. I mean, that helped us bring on board our first fully electric hotel, no gas, and that was a challenge in of itself. But because we've had the historical journey, been on the historical journey, we managed to get it over the line. Okay, and moving forward, it means that once you've reported once, it means that you can no longer stay there. You have to keep thinking of new ideas. But also, when it comes to the reporting, it means that for your guest, for your client, They understand that what they are getting from you as a venue, okay, but also from a staff member's point of view, they can see that what you're asking them to do has a value, has an effect, okay, and then that should hopefully bring on more personal investment from staff members, but also it should hopefully encourage your visitors, your guests, to also understand their impact, and for them to also jump on your journey or their journey if they are on that. Is that
Ian?
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, lots of great things there. I just want to answer the question that's come up a little bit more, which is about the CO2 and the supply chain. When you get to scope 3 emissions, you know, whether you include all of the supply chain or anything else for it is a very tricky position to understand, and to try and benchmark one person against the other one, what they're putting into their scope 3 emissions against it is another thing. What I would say is we've tried to engage with our suppliers through a procurement charter, through every 6 months we have lunches where we invite our suppliers in to talk about themselves, to talk about their journey, and try and get to a better position that we understand they're in, realistically. So again, we can only do so much as one, but together by engaging the suppliers, hopefully that's a way that we can try and make them more environmentally aware, and maybe they start thinking more about their own emissions.
Fitzroy?
Just Ian, so when you engage, so with scope 3, I think the whole point of scope 3 is to help you understand which suppliers can help you shift the needle, if that makes sense. And it should also hopefully encourage more local suppliers to improve their offerings, because scope 3 will have a large impact on the overall reporting of emissions. But like yourself, we are doing exactly the same. We are looking to encourage our suppliers to jump on, again, the word journey, jump on the same track that we are on, and to start driving down their emissions as a business, because you are guilty by association. So ultimately, once you get to that reporting element of it, if you use that reporting tool correctly, it means that you will be purchasing, and again, that's what they like to see within your environmental standard, is that you are purchasing your supplies more locally.
I've had one quick look at the clock, and I can see that we have very quite quickly run out of time. We are going to overrun because I want to give the final word to Nina, because we have talked about what it means to be a sustainable hotel, from scope 3, from on-property initiatives, off-property initiatives, framework, certifications. Nina, what are the broader benefits of adopting sustainable practices for hotels?
Thank you so much, Eloise. And I think, as we're seeing here, you know, we could speak for many hours about all of the different topics we've touched on today. And it's great that we will have more webinars to do deeper dives into these topics. You know, and I want to also just recognize, I'm reading the comments and there's some really fantastic questions and points in there. You know, I want to maybe take a half a step back here and just emphasize that because sustainability is a journey, you know, it really is about putting one foot in front of the other. And of course, having goals, measuring your progress, and setting targets, but also recognizing that there are no overnight solutions or magic bullets to any of the problems that we're currently facing. And solutions that we do implement often take years to see the positive impact of, and some impacts we'll never see, because planting seeds of awareness and impacting the way that other people also lead their life are not quantifiable. So all of that is to say, you know, I really encourage anybody watching to don't panic if you're not already 100% in any of these different realms, because the reality is, like I said, there is no final destination here. And, you know, accreditation can certainly be an important toolbox for properties, but also impact and ensuring that you are starting from the foundation, building out education, awareness, bringing your staff and your travelers into the mix, engaging with your communities, and starting small. Like we've heard on this call, create committees, allow them to set targets, allow them to share new ideas that they have in their departments, offer opportunities for guests to also tell you what they're excited about. Because I think one thing that's also very important to recognize is that even in the idea of luxury travel, the very idea and principles and concepts of luxury are actively changing. And especially as millennials and Gen Z take the predominant helm of travelers around the world, you know, they have very different definitions of luxury than the generations before them. So where in the past, you know, maybe somebody did want to have an individually sealed water bottle handed to them 5 times throughout the day, for many travelers today, that would be a turnoff, and that would be something that they would very much not want, and perhaps would even impact, you know, their decision if they would want to return to that property. So I think also, and very important, to listen to what your travelers are excited about, ideas that your staff have, ideas that your communities have, and really work on creating, you know, what are solutions we can implement in 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 4 years. Start somewhere, learn as you go, and continually update your actions accordingly, and recognize that, you know, all of this is a journey. And if you're already paying attention, and if you're already investing in this space in whatever way you can at the moment, that means you're on the right path. And Eloise, just to answer your original question, the truth of the matter is, if you're not investing in sustainability today as a hotel, you're already behind. And that's because not only is sustainability the right thing to do for our planet and people, it's absolutely critical to business success. And every indicator in the industry shows that sustainability is not a trend, but it truly is driving the transformation of the travel and tourism industry. We're seeing this across the board and around the world, and that is only going to continue to grow. So even if starting small, make sure you're starting today, and make sure that you're really, again, setting those goals and monitoring your progress, because it will be the small seeds that you plant today that can turn into real impactful initiatives tomorrow, in 5 years, and in 10. And that's really what's important here. So yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for this very lively discussion, and really looking forward to your upcoming webinars. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Nina, and what a fantastic call to action, and a great way to round off our discussion today. What we're going to do is leave the webinar open right at the end to allow our audience members to follow up on any of the comments, the discussion that's happened into the chat today. There's plenty of links that have been popped into the chat, including all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers. So hopefully that video that we play right at the end of today's webinar will give you time to follow up on all of that important stuff. I just have some closing slides that I would like to run through. I mentioned earlier that this episode is the first in a series of sustainability webinars. The next session is going to be taking place in November, if my team members can move the slides along for me. On November the 25th, we're going to be talking about monitoring and reporting sustainability performance, something that was touched on and talked about quite a lot today. The link to register has been popped into the chat. We would absolutely love to see you there. Looks like we may have some issues moving these slides along, so I am going to go from memory. Hello, so that's the next webinar that we're going to be hosting. So once again, the link to register has been popped into the chat. And next week in London, we are hosting an in-person event all around how technology is shaping the operator and guest experience. Again, something that was touched on today, especially when it comes to the tools, systems, and the platforms that are being used to monitor sustainability performance. This is an in-person event. Would love to see you there. If anybody's here in London, you can buy your tickets following the link that has been popped into the chat. And if you're keen to work with us either across our digital or in-person events, please do get in touch with my colleague Piers. His details are now up on your screen. So thank you to Nina, to Alexa, to Ian and Fitzroy, some fantastic insights shared today. Huge shout out to Beyond Green and Ruckus for their support in these webinars. We've clearly got lots to learn. I'm really looking forward to future episodes. But thanks again for your time and your insights. Thank you to our audience for turning up today. Best of luck with everyone on your journey, and I certainly look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So take care, guys, and see you all very soon.
Thanks, Eloise.